sorry for this really beautiful session put together by CSMVS. Really grateful, not just for giving me an opportunity to be here and share whatever little I know about music and a little bit of stories, but for keeping all of us going through this really beautiful initiative. Thank you City, thank you CSMVS Museum on Wheels. I am Raman Iyer. I play this little instrument called the mandolin. I'm with a band called Neeraj Arya's Kabir Cafe. And today I will be exploring the journey of this little instrument called the mandolin. How did it end up here in India from Italy? And then we will look at some stories from Italy and see how did stories from here end up going in Italy. So it's called Journeys of Songs and Stories. How did songs and music and this instrument called the mandolin come up here in India and from Italy? Just a second, I am just trying to pin this whole thing so that those of you who are joining in now can understand what is the context. I'm just trying to, give me a second. Alright, I'm not able to pin it for whatever reason. Okay, I'm just going to post it like that. So yes, it is songs and stories. That is what the session is for today. Anyway, most of us, at least me, I started playing the mandolin in 99. It's close to 21 years now. And for me, mandolin, for a long time in school, I had to play the DDLJ part. So the instrument of the mandolin is becomes very popular. It's the image. The moment you say mandolin or you come across this instrument, then you immediately picturize Mr. Shah Rukh Khan and his pose. So we will arrive at that connection as well. But we will just go back to the humble beginnings and of this instrument. So the mandolin actually comes from Greece. Very early ancestor, you can say, called the lute family from the Greek. And then it traveled towards Eastern Europe, and in the journey, there were near Syria, there's a place called Phrygia. From there on, it took different forms as the oud, as the saz, as the bouzouki, and it ended up in the Middle East, what we can now, what was Persia, and today it is broken into several countries. But in that region, from the lute, Phrygia, what we call in music even today as Phrygian mode, we had a lot of ancestors of the mandolin coming up over there. So the Phrygian mode would be something like this. You are very familiar with the typical Middle Eastern kind of a vibe. So this kind of a vibe was Middle Eastern music, and some traditional, you can say Turkish music, you can say the Middle Eastern ancestors of the mandolin. Some of the melodies are even popular today. For example, Rasputin, which was made insanely popular by Boney M, is actually an old Turkish folk song called Uskudar, dating back to 10th century, 11th century. So you would obviously connect with this melody, and this was how it was played back then with the ancestors of the mandolin. So this is an ancient melody, Turkish melody. It is called Uskudar, which was made popular much later by Boniem. Likewise, this tune called Misirlu, which is again an Ottoman Empire, even earlier from the Ottoman Empire tune, which was made very popular by Black Eyed Peas when they used it for the theme music of the classic Pulp Fiction. So Misirlu, again an ancient melody, but then as Pump It, Black Eyed Peas recreated this in their version called Pump It, which was used in Pulp Fiction. So this is this one. Just a second. So if you see, this particular style of playing is the Phrygian way, and that is the region where from the Greek lute you travel to Middle East and the ancestors of the mandolin. And the final form of the mandolin as we know today, the one I am playing itself is 90 years old. So in around 18th century, when the mandolin found its way to Italy, it was adapted into the Western classical form of music by Antonio Vivaldi. Some of you who listen to Western classical music would definitely be aware of this piece of his called The Four Seasons. So this piece by Antonio Vivaldi is called the Concerto for the Mandolino. It was called the Mandolino in Italy, and this was actually written for two mandolins. The Concerto for Mandolino for two mandolins backed by an entire orchestra. So from this Phrygian style of playing, like in Rasputin also you found a very similar vibe, right? You found this in Rasputin and you found this in Misirlu also. From this vibe, when Antonio Vivaldi took it into Western classical music, and the Concerto for the Mandolino, originally written for two mandolins backed with an entire orchestra with all the beautiful flourishes and harmonizing and support. So I'm just going to be playing on one mandolin a little bit of Concerto for the Mandolino, where you will see the drastic difference from the Phrygian style of the mandolin's ancestors to the Western classical format. So, the complete into the Western classical music from the Phrygian mode when it entered Italy, and from then on it went on to Ireland, it became an integral part of the folk music, then the Scottish fiddle, everything happened. So from Greece it traveled to Phrygia and then it traveled to Italy as a Western classical instrument thanks to Antonio Vivaldi. Now how did it reach India? So around this time, so this piece was composed in 1725 and at around that time there was a lot of European influx. That was just about the time when people from Europe were coming in large numbers towards India, just about the beginning of the colonial era. So there were the Portuguese, there were the Dutch, there were British of course, there were the French. So the instrument definitely did make its way along with the violin as well. So in Indian music, we can differentiate two forms, Hindustani music and the Carnatic music. So Carnatic music today, when we think of the mandolin, it is the legend U. Srinivas, who is no more with us unfortunately. U. Srinivas used the electric mandolin, but we will talk about that in the later segment, much later, because that is a completely different style of playing. Because the mandolin, if you see, it has very less sustain. So I have to, if I hit a note, the shelf life of the note is very less. It is very short, very quick. Unlike the violin gives us the sustain. So if I hold a note sa, the violin I can extend it sa, right? The entire bowing I can use it. Whereas over here I have to play sa 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 sa. It's quite irritating, right? The shelf life is very less. Whereas Carnatic music, it relies heavily on what we call as gamakam. Gamakam is the space between two notes. The Western music, for that matter, is note after note after note, right? So you play a note and then you move on to the next note. Like we saw Vivaldi's composition also earlier. So, but as in the Carnatic form of music, the journey between two notes is very important. So if I'm playing sa re ga pa, right? Sa re ga pa, you extend, you explore the journey between these notes. So ga and pa is not just you go, and then from pa you're coming back to sa. You explore the journey between the notes. So the acoustic mandolin is typically not conducive to play Carnatic music. Unlike the violin just took as naturally. Today you cannot imagine a Carnatic music concert without a violin, despite it being a Western instrument. So the violin adapted itself so beautifully into the Carnatic form of music because of its natural sustain. You can slide. So how did the violin end up coming into Carnatic music? We will look at that later, but for now, so in the acoustic mandolin, if I were to play a Carnatic piece, you will say, you will not get that real feeling of Carnatic music. So let me play a raga Hamsadwani, a very popular Carnatic number, Vatapi Ganapatani. So it has a lot of limitations. I am actually playing this in the Hindustani style because in Carnatic, if you actually hear U. Srinivas play this, or if you hear any violin player play this, I'm just playing cut to cut the notes. Sa re ga pa ni sa, re sa re pa ni sa. I'm not exploring the gamakams at all. I'm just playing ऐसे ही कर रहा हूँ normal. So Carnatic music typically. So this song is there's a Hindustani rendition also of the song. So those of you who are feeling this is beautiful is the Hindustani style of music. Just lagi lagan tumse saki. It's not bata pigana. वो जो notes में explore नहीं कर रहा हूँ इसमें नहीं हो पाता है. तो लागी लगन तो अपन ऐसे गा सकते हैं note to note, no? So anyway, so how did the mandolin end up becoming the electric mandolin in Carnatic music? We will talk about that later. But for now, this fit in very beautifully with the Hindustani form of music. In Hindustani style of music, you see, let me take a raga Bahar. Okay. So I can use, because to get the sustain you need the tremolos, what this manually increasing the shelf life of a note, which is repeating the note multiple times. This style of playing is called the tremolo. So I can use this to my advantage when I play Hindustani music. So, Rag Bahar. So it adapts naturally to the Hindustani form of Indian music, and this is largely due to the efforts of Mr. Sajjad Hussain. Mr. Sajjad Hussain in the 1930s, he was an accomplished violinist, he was an accomplished veena player, and having met different European musicians, the mandolin was definitely there in India by then, but largely played in the Western classical format or in the Scottish fiddles and in the Irish folksy music. So he took it, he tuned it to the Indian style without modifying the instrument. Whereas Carnatic requires a modified way, that is why it's an electric mandolin, but using the acoustic mandolin. Sajjad Hussain was the first to, he took it to the Hindustani concert space. He was also a film composer. He worked a lot with Talat Mahmood, a lot of Dilip Kumar films back in those times. But he never used the mandolin for film music. He always felt the mandolin had to be treated in a classical space, so he did not introduce it into the film music. And Sajjad Hussain's life and times are very, very interesting. He was a purist, so he did not compose a lot of films because he was not okay with the way they wanted him to compose songs. So he used to compose very tough. He was a classical musician, and then the producers would come and say that ये गाना लता जी भी नहीं गा सकती, तो आम आदमी कैसे गाएगा? For a film song to become popular, the melody has to be really simple, which anybody, whether we have musical training or not, should be able to hum that song. But Sajjad Hussain was completely against that idea. He says music is a discipline, it needs to be practiced. Audience are rasikas. You can only listen and enjoy. You should not be singing if you have not learned singing. So he was a purist, and so he did not sustain for a long time in the film world. But his life and times, you can please look him up. So he introduced the mandolin to the Hindustani style. Now in the film world, largely Shankar Jaikishan used the mandolin a lot. Madan Mohanji used the mandolin a lot. So Shankar Jaikishan's compositions, you would remember, this is one of my favorite composition of his, which was again recreated much later by Nitin Sawhney and sung by Sushila Raman. Ye Mera Deewanapan Hai. This was actually in a very old film, 1958 or something like that, called Yahudi, with Dilip Kumar and originally sung by Mukesh. So If you hear the original, you will hear the mandolin playing in this track. So that was Shankar Jaikishan, and then of course Madan Mohan, I don't need to explain the song, is one of the finest composers there was there in this country and of my favorites, and everybody knows this song, you know. And the interesting space after comes from Lakshmikant and Pyare Lal. So Lakshmikant ji was a mandolin player, and Pyare Lal ji, he is a violinist, and he comes from this beautiful Western world of orchestration and arrangement and using the violin section, and then getting that orchestral element into film music, whereas the basic melody composition, Lakshmikant ji used to compose it on the mandolin, and which is not very easy, because if you are composing, if you are trying to create a new melody, typically a harmonium or a keyboard would help, where you can clearly see all the notes. To give you an idea, I'll just use the melodica just to show it is easy to compose on this, because you see all the keys over here. So it is. So if you are composing any melody, you just keep fidgeting around and you can figure out. अरे ट्यून आ गया अरे मेलोडी आ गया तो इसमें आपको नोट्स दिखता है, तो आप इजीली कंपोज कर सकते हो. लेकिन on the mandolin you should know which note you are playing, and you should have the composition in your head first before you try to extend it to this. But Lakshmikant ji used the mandolin so naturally for composition and not just playing existing pieces or a bandish. So one of my favorite song from LP Lakshmikant Pyare Lal ji, which in its final form is a beautiful violin flourish, completely Pyare Lal ji's work, but the melody, it could have been composed on the mandolin and it would have sounded something like this. So a quick run through of the journey of the mandolin, the journey of songs and stories. In the first segment, as we saw how it originated in Greece and then moved to Phrygia, and through its Middle Eastern ancestors we saw Uskudar, which became Rasputin, and then Misirlo, which became Pumpet, and Antonio Vivaldi's interpretation of Concerto for the Mandolino, and then Carnatic music, why it cannot happen, and then in the Hindustani music, why it can definitely happen, and how did Sajad Hussain bring it into the classical space, and the likes of Shankar Jaikishan and Madan Mohan and Lakshmikant Pyarelal took the mandolin from the Indian classical space into the film music and given us so much thing. But a talk on Indian mandolin and film music is incomplete without this tune. I'll give a small my childhood when I started playing the mandolin. Any function in school, like the curtain would be closed and I would be sitting pretty much the way I'm sitting right now on a chair. Only that steel chairs होते थे ना school में जिसमें numbers वगैरह लिखा रहता था. So I would be sitting on a chair and waiting, and as the curtains open, I had to play this. I think I've played this 5 years, at least 20 times straight, back to back. So curtain ऐसा खुलता था and I had to play. So I had to play this. So this particular piece, if you notice in the film, I am sure many of you are aware of this film, Shah Rukh Khan is not a musician. He doesn't play the character of a musician in that film, but then he always poses his typical pose. He's holding the mandolin in the fields of Europe. So what is the reason for it? Did they just find that your guitar बहुत महंगा है, एक सस्ता instrument हाथ में लेके pose कर लो? Was that the reason? Actually, no, there is a very interesting reference point for this. So in 1787 Italy, there was an opera by Mozart. It was called Don Juan or Don Giovanni, and it was about this nobleman, the Spanish nobleman who was romantic by heart. And this character of Don Juan was played by this actor called Luigi Bassi, Luigibassi. So Luigi Bassi, while enacting the character of Don Juan, he went on stage with a mandolin, and this was how he would serenade the women. So he would charm women, walking into the mandolin, and when he enters holding the mandolin and the woman is coming across, that image, that sketch was the poster for the publicity of Don Juan as a play, and then it caught on. So Luigi Bassi was the original SRK, where the poster of him holding the mandolin, posing with the mandolin before a woman, that became a symbol of classic romance, of a Spanish elite nobleman serenading a lady with a delicate instrument. So that image, that was the reason why this instrument became a symbol of the Badshah of romance, you can say. So definitely the Chopras were well traveled, well read. So the reference, and since they shot the film in Europe, the reference for SRK to hold the mandolin and to pose is from Luigi Bassi back in 1787 in a Mozart opera called Don Juan. I've been playing this DDLJ ever since I picked up the mandolin, and then the story of why did they exactly use it when they didn't show that he is using the mandolin. He's not playing it, but he's just holding and posing. That was the imagery reference point from Luigi Bassi's Don Giovanni, a Mozart opera. So that bit comes about how the mandolin traveled all the way. So it comes back to Italy. The Italian mandolino comes to India and again has a connection back to Italy through little bit stories. I hope you enjoyed this segment of it. Now we have to give back also. We have taken this beautiful instrument and then we've done something. So how stories from here, how did they end up in Italy? We will just take a look at it as well. So now, all of us have grown up with these stories. This is called the Panchatantra. Panchatantra actually comes from an ancient language even before Sanskrit called the Prakrits. So in the Prakrits, there is one dialect of Prakrits called the Paishachi Prakrit. And in Paishachi Prakrit, there is this great work called the Brihat Katha, attributed to an author by Gunadhya. Gunadhya is the author, and Vishnu Sharma took a lot of stories from Brihat Katha. We all know the beginnings of Panchatantra, where there was a king and he had children who were not quite up there, they were not studying properly, and he was worried how are they going to become administrators. So Vishnu Sharma takes the challenge and says, give me 6 months, I will teach them whatever they need to know. And then through stories, he inculcates them, and the stories have a lot of animals coming in and everything. So the Panchatantra, you can date it to many hundred years, thousands of years before. In its final form itself is about 8th, 6th, 7th century AD. So it's definitely all these stories, and even those versions says that these were stories told in the past. So Panchatantra, we all know about the Panchatantra, and the Panchatantra has 5 books. That's why it's called Panchatantra. 5 strategies. So those are Mitra Bheda, separation of friends. How do friends get separated? And then you have the Mitra Labha. Mitra Labha is gaining of friends. How do you make new friends? And then you have the Kakolukeyam. Kakolukeyam is crows and owls, war and peace. You know, that is about Kakolukeyam. Then you have the Labdha Pranasam. Labdha Pranasam is loss and gain. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. How do you deal with it? And then the last book is called the Aparikshita Karakam. Aparikshita, without thinking. Parikshe jo bolte na, pariksha, without examining. Aparikshita Karakam, in simple translation, is actions without thinking. So these 5 books form the basis of the Panchatantra. And then, so there was this person from Persia. He was a physician, Burzoya, around 570 AD. He traveled to India. He was from Sassanid kingdom in Persia. He traveled to India reportedly looking for the Sanjeevani booty. He was a physician. He was looking for this magical herb that can cure. And eventually through his adventures, he finds out that the real Sanjeevani booty is in the stories of the Panchatantra, the one that can heal, the ones that can transform. So he translated the Panchatantra into simple as Kairak Ud Damanak. The 2 jackals that come in the Panchatantra, Damanaka. So he takes that and he translates it. And that book is lost. We don't know where is the Kairak Ud Damanak. But around 250 years later, the book was translated again in around 750 AD. So this was translated from Burzoya's work. It's called the Khalil-va-Dhimna. The Khalil-va-Dhimna is the Persian translation of the Panchatantra, and I believe CSMVS has a manuscript, some manuscripts of this. So please, whenever this lockdown gets done, make it a point to visit museum. I'm not saying this because they have given me the opportunity to share whatever little I know, but it is one of the most amazing places to be, and also Museum on Wheels is a beautiful concept. So I remembered this because I think there was a Persian manuscript, some manuscripts of the Khalil-va-Dhimna right here in Bombay, in Mumbai CSMVS Museum. You can definitely go and check it out. Anyway, so the stories travel from here to Persia, and then what happened? Now we cut to Italy. Okay, we cut to Italy, 14th century. A very similar situation, what we are going through right now, happened back then also. There was a pandemic and there was a pandemic lockdown. There was a pandemic lockdown, people were asked to stay indoors. It was terrible, and obviously technology 800 years ago, it was even more difficult to get into things the way it is easy for us today. So the pandemic was the plague, also called as the Black Death. So many people died. Thousands of people, lakhs of people actually died. And then, so there was a pandemic lockdown, people were asked to not step out, everything was closed and things like that. So I would like to call this story that came out as the greatest productivity challenge. The greatest productivity challenge during a pandemic lockdown 800 years ago. We are talking about this book called the Decameron. The Decameron is by Giovanni Boccaccio. So some of you are familiar with Italian literature. Dante's Divine Comedy. Dante's Divine. So comedy is not supposed to be taken as a funny thing, which became an implied meaning. the word comedy and tragedy, that there were only two forms of theatre from the Greece. So tragedy is anything that has a sad ending, and comedy is something where the lead character doesn't die. That is it. Tragedy is when somebody dies, and comedy is when the lead character doesn't die. Comedy, to use the word comedy as a blanket word for all humor, is a much later addition. So Dante's Divine Comedy, so Giovanni Boccaccio, he respected Dante so much, so he called the Decameron as the human comedy, as a triumph of the human spirit. So Boccaccio's story is quite interesting. I'll just sum it up very quickly. He is the son of a very rich banker, and Swiss, kings were also clients of his in Italy. And one of his clients introduced him to the Royal Society of Library, the Royal Library Club, so where he got access to read so many manuscripts from around the world, so many books from around the world, and chances are that he has come across the Persian version or its other retellings of the Panchatantra, and he comes up with this magnum opus called the Decameron. So the Decameron, dear friends, very quickly, is a story set in the pandemic lockdown. So there are a group of 7 women, 7 girls who want to get out of the city because the lockdown has been announced. They said 3 days you just go wherever and stay. After that you cannot step out. So 3 young women decide to get out and into some resort kind of a place. Somebody has a Alibag mein bungalow hai, वैसे भी lockdown है, वहाँ चलो, pretty much like that. And they end up in a church, and in the church they are thinking, yaar, but we are 7 women, but then we should have some men. It's not safe or whatever. What do we do? Coincidentally, 3 handsome young men walk into the church, and they're asking, what are you doing? And he says, yes, I'm also, we are wondering what to do for the lockdown. And the woman says, why don't you join us? So 7 women and 3 men, 14 days, they lock themselves up because of a pandemic lockdown. And to while away the time, today 14 people will be in 14 different devices, but those days nothing. So to while away the time, they come up with this idea, saying that every day, all of us will take turns to tell stories to each other. 10 people, 10 stories. We will do this for 14 days. We will do this for 10 days. Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. Those 4 days we will take it to devote ourselves to prayer. So 10 days, that is why it is called the Decameron. 10 days, 100 stories. So this formula of story within a story first itself was a premise for the Decameron. And interestingly, dear friends, in the Decameron, there are 16 stories. There are 16 stories of the 100 stories, which has its roots in the Oriental side of things, including the Panchatantra, including the Hitopadesha, including the 1001 Arabian Nights. So a lot of these stories, of which, to be very precise, 16 stories in Boccaccio's magnum opus, the Decameron attributes. So specifically from the Panchatantra, so as he said, 10 days, 10 people, each one tell a story. So the second story of the second day, the third story of the second day, the second story of the third day, the second story of the fourth day, and the 7th day's 8th story have a direct reference from the Panchatantra. I will give you a small example in just a while. And also these stories inspired Shakespeare. Inspired Shakespeare's All Is Well. It also inspired Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. So the journey, just like the journey of the mandolin, which travelled all the way from Greece to the Middle East to Persia and ended up as DDLJ, the stories just went and inspired a lot of people from here. So let me tell you a story first from the Panchatantra. First story from the Panchatantra, and then I will tell you how the Decameron used the same story. So there was this merchant called Sagaragupta. Now Sagaragupta had a son called Prapta. Now Prapta was he was more interested towards spirituality and things than business. So his father was exactly not happy with him. Yaar, tu kab business seekhega, dukaan kab sambhalega. One day Prapta comes back with a book, and he says, what is this book? He says, see it for yourself. So Sagar Gupta opens the book. The book has nothing except one verse, one page, one verse. He says, "ये क्या है किताब में एक ही श्लोका है, एक ही verse है, श्लोका क्या है?" What the shloka means is, we get what is in our destiny. Even God cannot prevent it. It makes no difference. What's mine cannot become others. जो मेरा है, जो मुझे मिलेगा ही. We get what's in our destiny, even God cannot prevent it. What's mine can never become others. He says, ये क्या एक ही श्लोका लेके कितना दिया तू ये बुक का? Sagar Gupta, businessman, asks him. And Prapta says, I gave 100 rupees. How dare you? You spent 100 rupees for these 4 lines. You are not even my son. Just get out. So Prapta is like, okay. But he keeps repeating these words. He almost meditates upon these words, saying that, what is in my destiny? Even God cannot prevent it. To me, it makes no difference. What's mine can never become others. He keeps saying this as he's wandering. Now, there is a princess. There is a princess who sees a warrior while she is, on a procession. She comes across a warrior and she likes him, but she doesn't know what to do because she is a princess and she has a lot of restrictions. So she asks her servant, she asks her maid to follow that particular warrior. Please follow that particular warrior and ask him to meet me at my palace at night. Give him the blueprint. You please handle the guards, send them around here and there, whatever is necessary. And then you make sure that he comes to my chambers. So the princess arranges everything. She prepares a lavish spread. She prepares, lot of food and drinks and keeps everything ready. And the maid goes in search of this warrior. She goes to the warrior and she says, our princess really likes you. So tonight, you come from this gate. मैं इस god का जुगाड़ कर लेता हूँ. यहाँ पे कोई नहीं रहेगा. वहाँ से आप चढ़ो. And then there will be a rope that will be dangling. You just climb up there and just 2 stories away, and that is where the princess is waiting for you. So this warrior comes and he says, okay. But he reaches the place. He sees the rope, and then he starts getting afraid. Oh my God, what am I doing? I am a warrior, and this is my boss's daughter. I am doing Rajadroha. If I get caught, I will be hanged, and this is against I cannot be doing this. So all that conscience starts coming up to him, and he doesn't climb up the rope. He just leaves. He says, princess hogi theek hai, par lekin pakda gaya to mera jayega. I'll be the one who's punished. She is just his daughter. So anyway, so he doesn't take that risk. So he leaves. At the same time, our Prapta, he's saying the shloka all the time, saying that what's mine can never be others. What's in your destiny will be yours. Even God cannot change it. He walks and he sees this rope. Somehow he enters the palace because he's not really going somewhere. He's just wandering. He sees jahan jagah dikha aa gaya. So he gets onto that rope and he enters. And the princess is very happy, but the lights are dim. Remember those days? So it's just candles and she cannot really see. But she's not expecting anybody else, and from this route it's only the warrior whom she liked has to come. So when she sees him, she's entertaining him. She says, please have this food, I really liked you and whatever. And after some time, our hero Prapta, he says, what is mine cannot be anybody else's. Even God cannot change one destiny. Then she realizes, listen, who are you? Are you not the warrior who came? He says, no, I was just passing by and I came. He says, you get out, you get out. He says, he again repeats the same shloka. He again says, what is mine can never be others. What's in my destiny, even God cannot change it. He says it and he goes out. He doesn't care. There are a lot of adventures which Prapta goes through like this. Then, he's wandering through a jungle. In the same jungle, there is a wedding procession that is happening. In the wedding procession, suddenly, the elephant that carried the bride runs amok. And everybody disappears, including the groom. Everybody leaves, everybody is worried about their lives, and nobody is actually caring about the bride who's stuck on this elephant that is running amok. And our boy Prapta, he's repeating it to himself, what is mine can only be mine, no God can change this destiny. And then he sees it and he calms down the elephant, he jumps on a tree and then he drags the bride out of it. And then once she is saved and after everybody gathers, And then the bride says, I'm sorry, I'm going to marry this man who risked everything to save me. This person who was going to marry at the first opportunity ran away, so I'm going to marry this person only. Well, the bride's father says, well, this is what my daughter wishes, and everybody agreed. Everybody agreed, yes, in such dangerous situation, this was the man who came out of nowhere and helped her. And then he again says, what is mine can only be mine. No destiny can be changed even by the gods. And then the bride takes the wheel and said, what, you again? She is none other than Princess Chandravati. The same princess many months ago, while expecting somebody else, this man came. So it ends up being that Prapta, who had entered her castle by mistake, and then she realizes it, drives him out. And after all this, she herself made the decision of, I'm going to be with this man because he was the one who risked his life to save mine. When she finds out that, are you the same? Says, yes, what is mine is mine. And that's where the story ends, to talk about how faith and belief in Panchatantra, like your destiny is yours, nothing can come in the way of it. Now let's cut to Decameron. The Decameron story is, there is again a merchant, Rinaldo. So Rinaldo was a very devout man, especially he is devoted to Saint Julian. So he always says in Ave Maria, he wishes, he prays to Saint Julian all the time, and he says whatever comes my way is Saint Julian, because of Saint Julian. So for a business trip, his father again, he's not happy entirely. You're going completely on the business, on the religious side. You should focus on business. Pretty much what Sagar Gupta had a problem with Prapta. So Rinaldo's father gives him a business assignment. Says, you take this money, take this, move from one place to the other, and make sure you give this there and get something back. Just to give some sense of responsibility to his son. So Rinaldo and his servant, the manservant, they both go out on a task, and he's always praying to Saint Julian. Now, there are 4 people who are aware of Rinaldo. They see him leave the city, they see him enter the forest. You know that he's a very gullible boy. Isko आराम से हम धोखा मार सकते हैं, कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. So they, with the intention of robbing him, they come and say, hey, where are you going? So I'm going here. We are also going there. Let's travel together. Rinaldo is an innocent boy. He's very happy. He says, oh, God has sent you. Saint Julian has sent you to protect me, because I know that the forest is full of thieves. I was just asking Saint Julian that please give me some company, and he sent you all. The thieves laugh and say, yes, don't worry, we'll all go together. And they keep taunting him, they keep asking him in the journey, saying that, why do you keep praying to Saint Julian all the time? He says, because Saint Julian is always with me. Nothing can go wrong when Saint Julian is there with me. His faith is, just like Prapta's faith in that sloka of destiny is, Rinaldo's faith is there in Saint Julian. So at that night, the 4 of them, the thieves, they attack Rinaldo, they take him by surprise, they tie him up, they kick him, they abuse him, and they take away everything he has, including his horse. And they say that now call your Saint Julian. Ab bula Saint Julian ko, kya hoga? Dekhna. They taunt him, they taunt Saint Julian, they taunt Rinaldo, they laugh, they take away his money and go. And even his manservant who hides, he comes back and he sees there is some 2-3 coins fallen down. He takes that and he also runs away. So our man Rinaldo is left all alone. He is left all alone and he is suffering. And at that time, he again starts praying to Saint Julian. Then he gets up, he's walking, he comes across a castle. Now in the castle, dear friends, there is a lady who's a widow, but she is also the mistress of the town's nobleman, Marquis, you can call. He heads that little town. He's a married man, but then he comes often. She is his mistress, so he keeps coming here often. And that night, Marquis was supposed to come. So she has again laid out a lavish spread, prepared a nice bath and everything ready, waiting for him. But the nobleman sends word saying that tonight I have an important meeting, I am not able to come. So she is lonely, she is a woman who is actually waiting for somebody, but she's made all arrangements and she's been stood up. So she is just sitting there wondering what to do now with all this. At that time, who happens to come to the castle? Our hero, Rinaldo. Rinaldo comes into the castle by mistake, just like our Prapta. But he is welcomed inside And then when he tells the story, there is a nice bond that forms between this lady and Ronaldo. What happens next is, by next morning they fall in love with each other. They actually call a father a friar, and the Marquis comes to know about it, whose mistress is this lady, but he wholeheartedly accepts. He says, yes, I'm great, I'm giving my blessings. And he also sends out his scouts. Those thieves are caught. Whatever Ronaldo has lost is given back to him. And the Marquis writes a letter to Ronaldo's father saying that this is what has happened to your son. Now he's gotten married under my blessings. So now take your son and your bride back. So everything ends well, and he keeps talking throughout his ordeals. Even when he's with the woman there, he keeps talking about Saint Julian, just the way Prapta kept talking about destiny. So there is this similarity. So we saw in the first segment of how music traveled through the mandolin from Italy to India, and how the stories from here, Panchatantra, ended up in the Decameron. So dear friends, it's absolutely nice seeing many of you over here. The session is going to end in about 6-7 minutes. So thank you once again to team CSMVS, Urvashi, Renuka. They have been fabulous people, and City for bringing these sessions right into our homes, right into our phones. Lockdown, no lockdown, learning and knowledge and things from the past. Keep talking to us. Thanks for making this accessible. So those of you who've been here for one time, if you have any questions, you can please type it over here. Also, I am Raman Iyer. I play the mandolin for the band Kabir Cafe, and every night 12 a.m. I do an audio only podcast called Midnight Musings and the Mandolin, where I just come in at 12 a.m. No stress of the video, so you don't have to see this, just listen to the stories and the mandolin, and you will hear these stories, very similar stories, something deep from the past, and trying to draw connections, and I'll be playing some of the mandolin. So you can follow me on Instagram at Raman Iyer. Those of you who do not want to stay up at 12 a.m., no problem, you can still follow me. Most of the episodes will be on my IGTV. You can listen on your convenience. Please follow CSMVS here, YouTube, everywhere. It's been a fabulous journey with them. In fact, the last session with Pandit Satyashil ji was so enthralling. Thank you once again, CSMVS, for doing this. And yes, so I will just play a little bit as we close. I hope to stay connected with all of you on my Instagram at Raman Iyer. See you, those of you who like to stay up late, please come at 12 a.m. What do I play? I'll play a raga called Revati for some time before the session ends. So tonight at 12 a.m. I'll be telling the very interesting stories from the Mahabharata, but not from our Mahabharata. When our gods in the Mahabharata traveled to Bali. So the Indonesian Mahabharata, called as the Kakawin Bharata Yuddha. So let's see how the Mahabharata, when the Arjunas and the Krishnas and the Yudhishthira and Nakula and Sahadeva, when they were in Bali, what exactly is the story in the Indonesian Mahabharata, along with some traditional Indonesian music called the gamelan music. So you can tune in to my Instagram at Raman Iyer at 12 a.m. And thank you once again for this Raga Revati a little bit before the session ends. Has any questions, you can please type it out over here, or even later you can just send me a DM, and we can keep sharing stories and music and this little mandolin. also please stay connected with Kabir Cafe Live on Instagram. That is a band where all of us, there is Neeraj Arya who sings, Mukund Ramaswamy plays the Carnatic violin, Brito Casey plays the bass guitar and backing vocals, Viren Solanki on drums, and Vikram Ramankar on percussions. We explore the poetry of Kabir. Kabir के जो दोहे जो schools में आते थे हमारे textbooks में. तो please stay connected with us too. There are a lot of interesting things we are working together on that as well. And it's so beautiful to spend this lockdown with all of you here. You know, it's very difficult for live artists. So Udita ji, just on my Instagram at Raman Iyer, when you see my Instagram, you can see on my IGTV. On my IGTV, the previous episodes are there. And yes, so that is it. So as Kabir Cafe, we are working on a lot of interesting stuff. Without hearing your applause, there is no energy, but we are slowly getting used to seeing thumbs ups and hearts flying and liking to believe that you are staying with us when we express. Thank you. So I still have 3 minutes, so I'll quickly play this particular piece. It is called Notaswaram, how Carnatic music got inspired by Western music. So one of my favorite pieces, it's called Notaswaram, composed by Muthuswami Dikshidhar, heavily inspired by European music. So when you hear it, you will not know, you will think this is Carnatic? Yes, it is. What is it? Koi sunta hai Guru Gyani. I cannot sing, man. That is Brito opens that line and Neeraj is right here in the next room, but then he will get him to sing. But I can just play a little bit of Koi sunta hai Guru Gyani for you, definitely. So that was Koi Sunta Hai Guru Gyani. We haven't released that song yet, but yes. So thank you everybody, those of you who are staying up late. Hope to see you all at 12 AM tonight at Raman Iyer. But stay connected with CSMVS, and thank you once again CSMVS digital team, Mumbai, Urvashi, Renuka, all of you for giving me this opportunity to share whatever little I know about the mandolin and some stories. Good evening, stay home and stay safe.